Hi, today Sandis and I are going to talk about the outcomes and preparation for creative sessions we have either facilitated or participated in the last few months. First, we're going to talk about the preparation for creative session we held on the 2nd of October. For this session, we have selected a variety of methods sourced from different websites, articles, and toolboxes, one of which was Design Method Toolkit. For the icebreaker, we have asked participants to draw their favorite healthy dish or food product on an A3 sheet of paper and write their name below it so that we could address each participant by their name. After participants were done, we asked them to introduce themselves and their healthy food choice, and we would comment and interact with our participants throughout the process in order to create a friendly and good atmosphere during the session.
We have decided to use post-it brainstorming for the purge. This is a very easy method that does not demand much work, is active and engaging. Knowing this, we wanted to start the session actively and gain some momentum. In this exercise, we had a flip over on the whiteboard with a how might we question on top. After participants have received a set of Sharpies and Post-its, we would ask them to write some solutions to the how might we question on the Post-its and stick it to the flip over. With exercise or the purge, we wanted to help participants to get rid of the basic or the first ideas to start a more creative part of the session.
After the purge, our creative session reaches the first diverging phase, and I say first because we have decided to split the session into two separate diverging and converging sessions. The reason for that being is that we had learned so many new creative methods that we haven't tried before, and we wanted to see them work in practice. For example, the idea advocate, which we use in the end of the session. For the first diverging exercise, we chose a method called stepladder technique. With this method, we hope to eliminate group thinking as well as make the shy or silent members of the team share their ideas as well. We assume that a Dutch course is not used to talking English on a daily basis, and therefore we decided to use this method. This method requires all participants except one to leave the room, and then the participant is given an A4 sheet and a pen. They are given 2 minutes to write at least one solution to the how might we question, and after 2 minutes are over, another participant is invited into the room, and the process is repeated until everyone is done writing at least one idea. In the end, everyone has at least one idea that is the key element to the next exercise.
For the second diverging exercise, we have chosen forced connections. The participants were asked to shout out loud items that you can find in a grocery store, and afterwards we, the facilitators, would write them down on a flip over that is in the front of everyone. After this is done, we would ask participants to connect the ideas from the flip over to the ideas on their A4 sheet. Write one and pass it clockwise. With this method, we wanted to force our participants into being more creative by asking them to connect often very different and weird ideas. For the second diverging exercise, we have chosen forced connections. The participants were asked to shout out loud any items that they can find in a grocery store, and we, the facilitators, would write them down on a flip over sheet that is in front of everyone. After this is done, we would ask the participants to connect the ideas from the flip over to the ideas on their A4 sheets. Write one and pass it clockwise. With this method, we wanted to force our participants into being more creative by asking them to connect often very different and weird ideas.
Our second diverging phase starts with a method called reverse brainstorming, or the dark side. Participants would be asked to write down how to cause the problem mentioned in the how might we question instead of how to solve it. They would do that on red post-its and would be given 10 minutes. We would stick the post-its on the left side of the flip over and ask participants to flip the negative solutions into positive and write them down on green post-its for 10 minutes again. After exercise is done, we would have a set of original new ideas that haven't been mentioned in any of the previous exercises. And we chose this method because we wanted to make our participants look at the problem from a new angle. Because we have spent some time in class already, and participants may be tired. The final converging exercise had the method that excited me the most, and it was the idea advocate. With this method, we asked participants to choose their favorite idea from the previous exercise and prepare a case for 5 minutes. After the preparation, participants would one by one argument their choice and maybe even improve on the initial idea for 2 minutes. Then we would discuss the ideas again and see if there is a winner. This method was chosen because we wanted to make our participants feel passionate about their ideas, and this was supposed to squeeze the last bits of creativity and iteration for the last exercise. We have tried our best when it comes to the atmosphere in class. In order to secure it, we brought some snacks, tea, coffee, as well as a speaker to play music during the session. In the very beginning of the session, we introduced ourselves and explained what is diverging, converging, what is a creative session in general. Then we have went through the creative session plan together and explained each method in order to ensure a good flow throughout the session.
All of the tools used in the session were given to the participants in the beginning, and all of the elements that should be visible to the whole group were put on the whiteboards and walls around it. So participants had easy access to the ideas from the previous exercises if they needed them.
Although timing was an issue during the session because some exercises took more and some less time than we planned, we managed to end the session in an hour and 35 minutes. In order to do that, we had to adapt our timing a lot and miss out on some of the parts that we were interested in testing.
If the participants were struggling, we were trying to help to ideate together in order to inspire them to be more creative.
The flow of the session was mostly good. However, towards the end of the session, our participants were tired. We couldn't make a break because we ran into a few timing issues, and as a consequence, we were forced to carry the session to the end without a stop. And this is definitely a factor that should be considered next time we facilitate a creative session. After we received some inspiration from the nutrition students and showed them in practice what's a creative session like, we started to plan our own creative process. For the most part, we used the same sources that we found for our previous creative session, as they proved to be reliable and full of methods we haven't practiced before, such as sensorial brainstorming. We used this method in order to generate ideas that are out of our comfort zone. In addition, the idea that we chose to improve on for this session, we believe had a great potential in combination with this creative method. In order to perform this method, participants have to generate ideas for each sense while connecting the winner idea from the previous session. That is done until each participant has 3 ideas for each sense. Participants would be given 30 minutes to generate ideas, and in the end we would have a set of 30 ideas, 6 for each sense. After this, participants would discuss the outcomes of the exercise and filter 10 most promising ideas to converge on.
To converge on the generated ideas from the previous exercise, we found a method called Harris Profile. For this method, participants are asked to think of requirements for a design concept to be successful and write them down in a column. Ideas from the previous exercise are planted horizontally above the requirements, and the participants would receive afterwards colored post-its where each color defines a value starting from -2, then -1, 1, and 2. Participants would go through the concepts together and assign their post-its based on the concept's value for each requirement. The column of requirements gives each evaluated concept a score from which participants can see the winners and then optimize. We have chosen this method because it is usually used before prototyping some of the ideas. And since we were assigned to come up with the outcome for this session, it was the perfect choice to end with. At the end of the first creative session, we had a lot of ideas to be inspired by. One in particular that we liked the most was generated in the exercise that we considered to be one of the strongest, and it was enforced connections. The idea was a scanner that would display certain information about the product. For example, if it's high with sugar, or is it vegan, if it is gluten-free, and etc. We thought that this idea would be a great start for our own creative session, that we could make it into something really great. It just seemed like a very landed, realistic, yet interesting and promising idea that we could carry, and we hoped it would provide a valuable solution to our problem. So one of the drawbacks that I would like to mention from our creative session is that we made affordability as one of the requirements in our Harris profile, and therefore we made many crazy and interesting ideas suffer on the score as they turn out to be very costly.
We ensured efficient work by preparing the materials as well as in the previous session. We brought a flip over, 5 A4 sheets for each sense, colorful small post-its, markers, and pens to write. After that, we put 6 post-its on A4 sheets for each sense. This way we could work on different senses simultaneously in an organized way, and then we marked the post-its for the next exercise with values to make sure that the evaluation process for Harris profile is efficient and quick.